today's scripture passage, the gospel, comes from Matthew's gospel, the 23rd chapter, and it's an interesting scriptural passage because we can see that Christ is getting very close to the shadow of the cross, and he's beginning to gather his followers around him so that he can begin to give them the information, the education that they need to continue after his death, even though they don't know the tragic and violent death that he must endure. And so he's telling them, now you have to know the law. You have to know the rules, as it were. You have to understand the commandments as God has taught them to you. This is vital for you, my friends. And he does a comparison. He says, now, you know, the current leaders, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the scribes, they're all understand the law, but they are terrible in applying those laws and living those laws and being in this relationship with God that he is calling them to be, that the people are vital as a part of the body of God. And so he wants his apostles to, okay, now take note of what they're saying, but be very careful that you don't follow what they're doing. They're making the laws above the people. And he's about to bring a new covenant that they're going to have to get to recognize that, you know, he had already taken the apostles, James, John, and Peter up to the mountain so they could see who he is. They understand that through this transfiguration that he is greater than the laws, he's greater than the prophets, and that God says to all of us, listen to him. Understand the Moses, understand the prophets, but listen to Christ. That's our challenge during this time. It's to listen to what Christ is saying through the leaders of the church. But we must always listen to what God is saying and understand that. And that's the purpose of Lent. The purpose of Lent is to hear Christ calling you closer to himself, closer, so that when Lent ends, we're closer to Christ than we were when Lent began. We're not to concern ourselves with titles. We're only to concern ourselves with how God sees us, that eternal title, child of God. And so as we live our everyday lives, it's to live our life as we listen to what Christ wants us to do during that time. So it's not so much what would Jesus do. It is to listen to what Jesus says. Remember Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. We are to still our souls, to rest in the comfort of knowing that God is always there. He's a still speaking, still loving, still forgiving, still merciful God. That hasn't changed. And during this time of Lent, we take time and pay particular attention to what God is saying to us every single day. Our Lenten discipline is daily. And you know, if we do it right, our Lent lasts longer than the 40 days. Our practice lasts longer than 40 days. Our lives are transformed. Our conversion never ends. Every moment of every day, we hope that we can draw closer and closer to Christ. My friends, I will be at St. Philip's Church in Norwalk, Connecticut, next weekend for a 3-day mission revival. And if you're in the area, please do come. I also want to thank those that I have visited at this wonderful little school in Baltic, Connecticut. It's called the Academy of the Holy Family. It's a boarding high school for girls, and they only have 27 students. They're so cared for. And I also want you to know how much this has meant to me, to be able to speak with you and by the thousands. And so every morning, so many of you have said what I do. Lord, what are we going to do today?